Have you ever aspired to dress more stylishly but feel like you're wearing the same boring clothing day to day? Or do you admire other people who fully commit to dressing an aesthetic, but yet you don't really feel like you could box yourself into one style alone? Or do you make your own clothing and you feel like the things you're making aren't really hitting the style marks you're going for? Me too. I have been making my own clothing for over 20 years. I went to fashion school, I've worked in the fashion industry, and I still feel like I'm having trouble really defining my personal style. Especially this year, I feel like I've been making a lot of garments that just haven't been feeling like me, which really sucks. And so I've decided to take a deeper dive into what my personal style means to me, putting together words, using images, pen to paper to really define how I want to dress so that I can use that as a tool for making decisions moving forward. So today I want to bring you along about how I discovered how to define my personal style and give you some tools in case this is something that you're also interested in doing, with the full intention of all of us striving to be the exact person that we want to be in this exact moment. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Tilley. I'm a textile artist and clothing designer. I sell my original sewing patterns on my website, antilleyhandmade.com, as well as teaching people in person and on this platform how to sew their own clothing. I'm glad you're here, so let's dive in. I decided to start by figuring out my 3 main aesthetics that would best represent my style and the way that I aspire to dress. This is not necessarily going to be the way I dress all day, every day, but at least where I want to aspire to be. I decided to use a tool called Milanote, which is a free web platform that basically helps you create a digital mood board, a place where you can drop in text and images quickly and easily, and it's free. My first aesthetic was wannabe goth. I love goth style, but I've never been interested in fully committing to the look. I liked the idea of using the word wannabe because it helped me kind of define my idea of goth. But if I'm gonna be the hero in my own story, let's use more positive language. So I eventually settled on sophistigoth. Style icons for sophistigoth are obviously Morticia Addams, but I would throw Gomez in there too because I can't resist a good stripe. I would also argue that Moira Rose is very sophistigoth, played by the one and only Catherine O'Hara on the TV series Schitt's Creek. I also really love this look that Blondie is wearing here. I believe this is part of a collaboration she did with a brand called Wild Fang. I love the combination of the suit with the chains and the grommets. My definition of sophistigoth is someone who loves to wear all black, or black with white detailing, or a combination of black and white, but I feel like a pretty neutral palette. Edgier details like chunky jewelry, chains, hardware like studs and grommets, chunky boots. The sophisticated component makes me think about cleaner, more grown-up silhouettes and fits, like suiting, I'm thinking tuxedo pants. And finally, I like the idea of looking like I could be mistaken for being in a very cool band. And let's be honest, that's always been a guiding principle for me. I would also like to throw in the ring the aesthetic corporate goth, which I feel like is very tangential to sophistigoth. Although I feel like corporate goth, I'm getting more blazers and trousers vibes, whereas sophistigoth feels more expansive and include things like this memorable organza dress from the first season of the Wednesday TV show. I mean, who doesn't want to wear that? Come on. Corporate goth is certainly a style that's been popularized by the content creator Young Planet. She's pretty much just does short form videos on multiple social media platforms. I follow her here on YouTube, and she shows off outfits that she puts together and is definitely someone who is fully committed to an aesthetic, which I admire, but I just want to glean components of what she's doing to put into my own wardrobe. My next aesthetic is Miss Frizzle. Miss Frizzle is a fictional character from the book and TV series The Magic School Bus. Style icons for Miss Frizzle, besides Miss Frizzle herself: Prue Leith, the judge on Great British Baking Show. Her style embodies bright colors and bold jewelry and accessories. I would also throw Noel Felding in there as also being Miss Frizzle-esque, although I think he flirts a little bit with Sophistigoth, which makes it even better, but I'm obsessed with all of those sweaters that he wears. The character LTW on the Sex and the City spinoff in Just Like That, played by Nicole R.E. Parker. I love the designer Dolo Orohu and the way he mixes patterns. I'm also obsessed with this Dior look from several years ago that I feel like screams this style. My definition of the aesthetic Miss Frizzle is lots of bright, bold colors, whimsical prints, patterns, and accessories. For example, if Miss Frizzle is gonna take the kids to outer space, you better believe that her dress is gonna have planets and stars all over it. Not to mention she's gonna have some sort of drop pendant earring that's gonna have a little Saturn on there. It's artistic, it's creative, and it's definitely someone who's not taking themselves too seriously. A fun person. Finally, my third aesthetic is 1970s camp counselor. Style icons for 1970s camp counselors has me thinking of two movies specifically. The first one is Wet Hot American Summer. I basically love every outfit in that movie, and it's a movie set in summer camp. It's actually set in the early 80s, but we're close enough. The other is Dazed and Confused, specifically Parker Posey's character Darlie. Darlie. If I say Darlie one more time, Darler. Specifically Parker Posey's character Darla and her opening scene where they're hazing the freshman class. I started working on this mood board last month, and when I pinned the picture of her in this outfit, it dawned on me that her shirt literally looks like the newest pattern I just came out with, the sports ball tee. Available now, AnTilleyHandmade.com. So I thought, wow, if this is not the most perfect timing for this to be a Halloween costume, especially in real time where I am today, Halloween is this Friday. So I used my new pattern to make her shirt. I found some amazing actual vintage plaid corduroy to make myself a pair of cutoff shorts. And what I'm so excited about is I feel prepared for Halloween with a costume for once. But you better believe that these pieces are definitely going to get incorporated into my regular wardrobe. So I'm really excited to see how defining my style using this mood board is really already helping me make decisions about things to make to suit my style. My definition of 70s camp counselor is a sporty, casual vibe with perhaps a little bit of outdoorsy influence, vintage graphic tees. I added 1970s in there, so that's painting a picture for me in terms of color choices and style lines. Crafty details like friendship bracelets or tie-dye. I was actually a summer camp counselor, and when I was also the arts and crafts director, so let's be honest, in my mind, those things go hand in hand. Once I started seeing everything laid out on my board, I started asking questions about what kind of projects and style ideas live between each of these aesthetics. What if a goth girl is a summer camp counselor? What would her tie-dye shirt look like? Where does Miss Frizzle and Sophistigoth intersect? So I started coming up with intersecting aesthetics between my hero styles. Sort of like sub-styles, but at the same time, they might even be even more like me because they're intersecting and bringing two together. Between Camp Counselor and Sophistigoth, I put Health Goth, where basically you're combining all black outfits with sporty details, which is certainly a style I've already flirted with in the past and have some great pieces that could fit into this category. David Rose from Schitt's Creek is a great example of this style. In between Sophistigoth and Miss Frizzle, I placed Art Gala Attendee. If you've never been to an art gala, it's usually a fundraiser for some kind of arts organization where the attendees are going to be a mix of art lovers, artists themselves, patrons of the arts, aka people with money and good taste, and it's a dress-up event. So you're going to get exciting, elevated styles. The first time I went to an art gala, I remember being really inspired by what everyone was wearing. So this as an aesthetic personally resonates with me as a lived experience. Between Miss Frizzle and Camp Counselor, I couldn't really think of anything witty that sort of combined sporty and artsy, but I do love the aesthetic sentimental craftcore. Thanks, I made it. And was looking for a place to put it on this diagram. The YouTube channel Peter's Prism did a great video about this style, and it immediately resonated with me. It's a style that shows off and celebrates hand craftsmanship and the idea of embedding or revealing a personal story or history in your clothing. I definitely thought it encapsulated the artistry and whimsy of Miss Frizzle and had the kind of arts and craftsy vibes of Summer Camp Counselor. It might be a little bit of a stretch, but hey, it's my diagram. There are no rules. As long as it makes sense to me, that's all that matters, right?
We're here to have fun.
Once I felt like I had defined my style with words, I started to go in and look for pictures that would directly support. I started to make note of overlapping style ideas, as well as drawing arrows to really obvious garments that could be great future sewing projects to help me reinforce my style goals. I also noticed broader patterns after I'd gotten everything onto my diagram. You know, in the summertime, I'm definitely gonna dress more 70s Camp Counselor, and then when it gets colder, I'm probably gonna be doing more of a sophistigoth. So my style can absolutely change season to season. Not to mention the intention of what you're dressing for, you know, and for a more formal situation, I'm going to look at art gala attendee for inspiration. And then in my more casual style, I'm going to be more health goth or sentimental craftcore. I also was entertained by how many masculine and feminine pairings I kept finding on the board. So I had Prue and Noel, Morticia and Gomez, Moira and David Rose. And what that said to me is that maybe I have a degendered view of my own style, which is honestly very liberating. Like, I like to dress feminine and I do feel comfortable in dresses as much as I like to dress masculine and I like to wear pants. And I like the idea that I don't have to define myself as one or the other, because ultimately we don't need to be defining clothes as women's wear or men's wear anymore. It really just needs to fit you and your body. If you are interested in exploring your own personal style of diagram, here are some further suggestions to get your ideas flowing. Take the personal style quiz on the Index app. My favorite podcast is Articles of Interest. Sidebar, if you haven't heard of it, you need to go listen to it. It's about fashion culture, fashion history. It's wonderful. But they have an episode where they interview a woman named Amy Smilovic, who is the lead designer of Tilley brand. And she talks about needing to categorize your style in 3 adjectives. The Index app will give you an easy, quick, personal style quiz to help you come up with 3 adjectives. I have to admit, I was a bit skeptical when I did it myself, and then I was totally shut down when I got my 3, which was edgy, sporty, and avant-garde, which doesn't that just fit the 3 styles we just talked about? I would have never used the term avant-garde for Miss Frizzle, but honestly, it's a perfect phrase, and I was like glad to kind of acquire that word. I know that seems silly, but this is part of like defining your style, is figuring out the word so that then you can start researching. Wow. Mwah. Hi, Tina. Dress in your most favorite outfit, go out with a group of friends, and ask them what terms they would use to define the style that you're wearing. This can be as silly or as serious as you like. All that matters is that it paints a picture. For example, I recently taught a week-long class with my buddy River Takata of Riv Talk Handmade. We always bring a bunch of handmade garments to wear throughout the week as inspiration. So we decided to document our outfits each day and then come up with a silly aesthetic that they embody. It actually helped start the concept for this video. And it was such a fun prompt because it gave us kind of something to talk about each day. And then I collaged it into a fun video that's a short on this channel. So be sure to check that out if you haven't already. Think about time periods, eras, or decades that speak to you. My friend recently said that they aspired to dress like they're potentially going to a Renaissance fair at any moment, which I thought was such a hilarious concept because it really paints a picture of where you could find style and gives you words like Renaissance fair to do some research and start digging for inspiration. Think about geographical locations like coastal grandma, maybe that's your vibe, or Grecian, or outer space. River recently was talking about how there's a lot of Asian subcultures that like to dress as sort of a fantasized French aesthetic. And I just thought that was such an interesting concept, like dressing like a grandmother from a kid's perspective, you know, like thinking outside of the box like that. You could even play with computer generated randomized automators where it's going to give you words that can help you dress more creatively. I think it was something like that, some computer thing that Rachel Maxey did. And she was certainly an inspiration for me to kind of think more intentionally about my style. Now that I have my personal style diagram all together, the next thing that I want to do is go through my wardrobe and kind of hold each piece up to this diagram and see if they reinforce the style I want to be, especially my basics, because I think that's where it's really easy to just wear things from like 10, 15, 20 years ago, or things that were hand-me-downs. The casual stuff you're wearing around the house, I still want that to make me feel stylish, because let's be honest, that's me most of the time. So I've got some plans in mind to go through and see if I can find some things to upcycle or rework, as well as kind of making some intentional new garments and making this be an excuse to purge the rest, because our style is going to change and evolve over the years. So we need to keep checking in with ourselves. And I know that I was such a self-conscious kid that I never really got to dress the way that I always wanted to dress. And so now is the time that I want to be the girl that I've always wanted to be. So until next time, my name is Tilley, and happy sewing. Mwah.